After almost a year of negotiations, yesterday Forest Peace Talks facilitator Bill Kelty released a document which seemed to pave the way for a transition out of public native forests. But those involved in the talks weren't aware it was going to be released. I spoke to Terry Edwards from the Forest Industries Association and Phil Pullinger from Environment Tasmania earlier today to find out just how significant the document is. Terry Edwards, Phil Pullinger, thanks for joining us around a table again. Phil Pullinger, are we about to see peace in the forests?
I wouldn't say that, Ellie, not quite, but I do think that this is a landmark agreement, a landmark point in terms of where we've got. As far as I'm aware, for the last 30 years of conflict over native forests in Tasmania, we haven't had a time before where environment groups and the timber industry and the union and timber contractors have been able to get to an agreement on protection of our native forests and a transition for the timber industry and the associated restructure. So I think it's a critical landmark point.
Terry Edwards, do you agree?
Look, in broad terms, we do agree with that assessment. This is the first time, I think, that all of the relevant organisations have been able to get to the point of reaching an in-principle agreement. That's not for want of trying in the past, but we've never actually been able to get to the point where we could say we had in-principle agreement across all those groups that Phil described.
Well, it's not a deal done just yet, is it? I mean, many are yet to, in fact, sign this document. You know, have you agreed to the document that was released by Bill Kelty?
Well, from the point of view of FIRT, we obviously have corporate governance issues that we have to go through as a private company. We need to go through our board of directors to have the agreement ratified. You're correct in saying that no one has yet, to my knowledge, physically signed the document, and that's because it is an agreement in principle. There are still a number of drafting issues that need to be tidied up in the document.
Was agreement, though, reached late Wednesday, I think it was, and was it agreed to by all parties?
That were at the table, yes, that's right.
Did you know that Bill Kelty was actually going to release the agreement yesterday?
No.
No.
Were you surprised?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Disappointed?
No, I don't know about disappointed, but certainly gobsmacked. I was on an aeroplane, and when I got off the aeroplane I had calls on my phone from the media wanting to talk to me about the detail of the agreement that I thought wasn't to be released at that point in time.
Do you think it shouldn't have been released?
I think it shouldn't have been released. Simply, as I said before, there are a number of drafting issues still within the document that should have been attended to. And I think also as a courtesy to the federal and state governments who are the intended recipients of this document, they should have been given the courtesy to get the document before it went out to the media.
So notwithstanding that, in terms of the work that we went through, over the last year and the last 48, 72 hours, we did get, an amazing breakthrough moment at midnight, I think it was, on Wednesday night, in terms of getting this in principle agreement agreed to amongst the parties around the table. So we're now at a critical point here where we have that agreement. There's a huge amount of work that's gone in over the last year. It has been very difficult. And we're now at a point where the ball is firmly in the court of the state government and the federal government in terms of whether or not this opportunity can now be turned into a reality.
It comes down to money, doesn't it? Are we talking about, what sort of sum are we talking about, 100 million, 600 million?
Look, I'm definitely not going to speculate about money, but what I'd clearly say is that now that this agreement's been reached between all these groups, it's really up to the state and the federal governments not just to commit to the funding that is required to make this agreement turn into a reality, but to commit to implementation of the full agreement in its entirety.
Phil's right when he says that this agreement is a complex whole and you can't take little bits and pieces of it and break them out and treat them separately. You must look at the absolute whole of the agreement. And that starts from the very front page to the very back page. One of the core issues that industry put on the table, for example, is the continued operation of the Triabunna woodchip mill. The agreement actually indicates that we made that a core issue. Now, that issue is not resolved. It needs to be resolved, because if we don't have that facility for dealing with arisings from harvesting and processing operations, we don't have the viable industry that we all set out to achieve.
I understand there's some disagreement about in the document released in terms of the national park. Can you explain that, Terry Edwards?
Yeah, look, the ENGO's made clear that they want protection of the initial reserves area by way of national parks. Industry was not prepared to agree to that. To us, that's a matter that should properly be considered by the state government, looking at proper reservation criteria. But we did agree that the document could record that that was the ENGO preferred option. But unfortunately, the document as written tends to indicate something to the contrary, and we'll be asking that that be remedied.
Can there be an immediate lock-up of 430,000 hectares and provide for timber supply contracts?
The short answer is no, when it's put in exactly that way. The document indicates that the initial lock-up is an area of forest plus or minus around that type of number, but none of it can be precise until we have a proper modelling process undertaken that clearly demonstrates what area of forest can be locked up in that initial tranche, whilst still providing the industry resource needs that are identified in the document.
Phil Pullinger, it's not sounding like an agreement.
No, I mean, it's really clear in terms of the process here, and there's basically, the environment groups have made it really clear that we're looking to see the protection of 572,000 hectares of critically important forests right across the state. There's an agreement for an immediate reduction of the high quality sawlog quota down to 155,000 cubic metres a year, and that immediate reduction, which is nearly a halving of the high quality sawlog quota, there is a significant amount of forest that can be immediately protected, which was basically identified as in the order of 430,000 hectares, plus or minus, with more detailed modelling work needing to be done to finalise that.
Just finally, you've both been intricately involved in this and been to countless meetings. Is there a mutual understanding and a respect that wasn't there before?
Certainly, relationships have been improved over the life of the discussions. When we first started meeting, relationships were quite testy and quite standoffish, and I think we're now able to talk to each other in a lot more open and frank way than we could in the beginning. There's still some time to go. There's still a lot of water to go under the bridge. There's still a lot of sores and wounds to be healed.
Briefly, Phil Pullinger, is there a mutual understanding and respect that wasn't there before?
No, I think that's true. I think that's fair to say, and certainly there's a lot of angst and aggro that exists out there in the Tasmanian community over this issue. And in my view, during the past year, an equally as difficult challenge has been trying to overcome some of that history and that legacy of mistrust and aggro that exists layer and layer from the 30 years of aggro over this issue.
Still some challenges ahead. Terry Edwards, Phil Pullinger, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ellie.